A 16-year-old is killed in Baltimore, and sources tell Fox 45 it happened after an attempted robbery. New today, Fox 45 News has found the teen may have been on home monitoring.
Millions in state money approved for safe streets today. Fox 45 News questions Mayor Scott about the organization following last week's FBI raids.
Say it ain't snow. A live look from Western Maryland as snow coats the roads. We're tracking a chilly evening ahead that's triggered a freeze warning.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 4.
The mayor is standing right in the midst of this. As far as I'm concerned, Munzie, the mayor, Johns Hopkins, Catholic Charities, Life Bridge all need to be checked out.
Well, calls for accountability as more money is approved for safe streets today. Baltimore's Board of Estimates signed off on $3.6 million of state money for the organization.
It comes less than a week after the FBI raided 15 Safe Street sites and the homes of a number of workers for alleged gang affiliation. And for the first time since the raid, Baltimore Mayor Brandon Scott reacting to the latest news surrounding the city's flagship gun violence reduction program.
The actions of a few individuals, however, does not negate the critical work that violence interrupters do in our city on a daily basis. When we were under a federal investigation for BPD, we were still taking grants from the state for BPD.
Thank you for joining us. I'm Mary Bubala.
And I'm Kai Jackson. The mayor says the funding will help the program continue, but there are unanswered questions about what's next for Safe Streets amid the federal investigation.
That's right. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost pressed the mayor on some of these issues today. She joins us live with what the mayor said to her. Mackenzie?
Yeah, Mary and Kai, the mayor maintains that he says that the actions of a few should not negate the work of the entire program citywide. And these comments come amid still a lack of transparency surrounding what's going on inside these various locations and who the workers are. We do know that the mayor says that he agrees there should be an audit done of the mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement, or MONSE, but he says that audit should take place during the routine audit process, which we know will take some time. Can't you just direct MONSE to be transparent and hand over the information for the public so they can see what's going on with their tax dollars right now?
Well, I think that, Mackenzie, the voters of Baltimore voted to have audits, and they voted to have them in this way. And I can't direct the Department of Audits to do that because they don't work for me. We have
but you can tell MONSE to do it.
We've talked to the comptroller, who is in charge of doing audits for the city, and he and I agree that it should be done, and we're going to do it the way that the voters, the residents of Baltimore, said it should be done, by the comptroller.
So we talked to the comptroller, Bill Henry, about that auditing process, and he says that when an audit like this is done through the process that the mayor is talking about, that really looks at the previous 2 budget years.
Even if we said, you know what, we're going to add MONSE onto the list of agencies that have biennial audits. The biennial audits are, just by nature, for the previous 2 years. People don't realize that when they say, ooh, something just happened, we want to audit them, the thing that just happened isn't going to be auditable until after this year's books close and we do something next year.
So, Mackenzie, the mayor says he's not pausing Safe Streets citywide right now. Will anything change in the wake of the FBI investigation?
Guy, the mayor says that the employee screening process is likely to change, and that really goes back to some of the questions that we've been asking, not only the city, but also the nonprofits for the last 2 years about how these employees are screened. We know that MONSE tells us that the nonprofits are the ones who make the final decisions, but the nonprofits tells us that MONSE plays a role in this, and they are part of the vetting process, even having veto power when it comes to who's hired or who's not. So who does make the final say in the hiring process? And given that what we're seeing happen now the second time with an FBI raid at Safe Street sites, will anything change when it comes to that screening process for employees?
There will be changes, and we'll send you directly the information in writing how those decisions are made. Thank you.
So who makes the final say of the hiring? You can see there the mayor did answer that last question, actually walking away from the podium and ending the news conference. And we're still waiting for that information that the mayor said his office would send to us. We're live in the newsroom. Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Mackenzie, thank you. And remember, these FBI raids are not the first major issue for Safe Streets. Several Safe Streets workers have been charged with crimes while working for the program over the years. One example is Ronald Alexander. He was convicted of distributing drugs in the communities he was tasked with protecting. According to police, he also tried to use his status as a Safe Streets worker to hide his drug dealing. And in the Brooklyn office last year, a federal indictment accused Vernon Harper of possessing fentanyl with the intention of distributing it. He was sentenced to 18 months in prison.
There's the case of Damon Scroggins. Safe Streets worker Ronald Brady Jr. was accused of killing Scroggins in September 2019. That case went to trial in 2022 and ended in a hung jury. Brady was acquitted in March. Scroggins' family is highly critical of the Safe Streets program, calling it a, quote, criminal enterprise.
My belief is that our city government is financing a criminal enterprise. I believe that within my heart. Our city government is so invested in it that it's turning a blind eye to what it really is.
Fox 45 News has questions for the City Council and LifeBridge, the nonprofit that runs the Bel Air Edison Safe Street site. Now, we've sent a series of questions to LifeBridge, the board, and their vice president of violence intervention, Adam Rosenberg, including when did you first learn about the FBI investigation? What, if any, knowledge of a possible criminal activity at Bel Air Edison do you have? And who actually approves the hiring of Safe Streets employees?
We have also been pressing the City Council since this story broke. Most members of the council support an audit of Safe Streets, but right now do not support an independent investigation of the program. We sent questions to all City Council members, including, will you pass a resolution to review how nonprofits spend tax dollars? Should the Safe Streets contracts with Catholic Charities and LifeBridge be audited? And is it time to open the books about the Safe Streets operation?
Yesterday, we asked, should Safe Streets be halted pending an investigation or audit of the program? 96% of those who voted said yes. That brings us to our question of the day. Do you trust Mayor Scott to uncover what's going on with Safe Streets? Head to foxbaltimore.com/vote to make your voice heard.
New information in the homicide of a teen in Northeast Baltimore.
We're learning that Khalil Jones was involved in an attempted robbery when he was shot Monday night and may have been on home monitoring for another crime at the time.
Alexa Ashwell's here now with some strong comments from the mayor and the latest on this investigation. Alexa?
Kai, Mary, as police pieced together this investigation, we heard a mound of frustration coming from Mayor Brandon Scott, who made the bold statement that had this teen's criminal past been properly handled the first time, he would be alive today.
Good morning, everyone.
Strong words from Mayor Brandon Scott concerning Khalil Jones, the 16-year-old, previously taken into custody for an attempted carjacking, killed just 2 months later in an attempted robbery, according to police.
When you're talking about young people, there has to be some system that actually works. Because if something was done the first time someone was arrested for something like this, that young man will be alive today. That's the reality.
Baltimore police say Jones was shot during an attempted robbery here on Bowleys Lane in Northeast Baltimore, October 30th. His body was discovered by officers after two teens attempting to drive Jones to the hospital crashed here on Orleans Street. The car they were in, police say, had been reported stolen in Baltimore County days prior. But that's not all. Back in August, police confirmed Jones was involved in the attempted armed carjacking of an off-duty police officer in Baltimore City. Here, the mayor alluding to the fact that Jones may have been on home monitoring as a result, a punishment that clearly didn't keep him off the streets.
If we have someone who tries to carjack a police officer, right, along with several other young people who are arrested, only for them to be turned right back out on the streets to commit the same kind of crimes, then folks don't need to be talking to me or the police commissioner about that. We need to understand again that you should not be able to do that to anyone and be released from the streets. When you're on home monitoring, You should be monitored 24/7, 365. This is why we've been fighting for those changes.
Changes to the juvenile justice system. Scott revealing pleas from police, prosecutors, and even parents fell on deaf ears.
And you have to start looking at judges who go over the state's attorney's wishes, who go over the police and my wishes, who go over the parents' wishes. If you have parents saying, please, we need help, don't send them home to us right now, then why are we doing it? Why are they doing it? Why? Because those folks don't have to talk to those kids' families. Those folks don't have to go to those funerals and hear other young people cry and see people mourning.
Now, the 18-year-old who police say was with Jones when the stolen car crashed is facing several charges related to the theft of that car out of Baltimore County, but not the attempted robbery here in the city. I asked police about this. BPD says the investigation is ongoing. The 18-year-old is currently being held without bond. Alexa Ashwell, Fox 45 News.
Alexa, thank you. Next, Wednesday, state lawmakers will hold a hearing on juvenile crime in Annapolis. They'll hear testimony from the Attorney General's office, the state's Juvenile Justice Reform Council, and the Maryland Police Union. Now, this hearing is not a special session and can't be used to enact any new crime laws or change existing ones.
Maryland is getting a taste of winter. Take a look at your screen. This is Western Maryland, where roads are covered in snow. Well, at least the side of the roads are right now. Maybe earlier in the day they were.
That's right. Well, this evening, temperatures are going to drop to bone-chilling levels. Chief Meteorologist Jonathan Myers joins us with the check of the forecast.
Yeah, a couple inches of snow up there in ski country around Deep Creek Lake. Around here, though, it's a freeze warning that we're most concerned about. That expires tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. The plants, yep, they have to be brought inside. All the tender vegetation either covered over or it's got to go in, or it probably won't make it. Again, that freeze warning for the entire area. No surprise. Temperatures at 49 right now at BWI. Bel Air at 50, 50 at Annapolis. Look at Columbia, 46. Jarrettsville, you're almost in the 30s. So unusually cold for this time of year. Westminster, Ellicott City, Pasadena, Owings Mills, Dundalk, all in the 40s. And overnight tonight, there those frosty and potentially freeze-type temperatures as we drop down to about 30 degrees by 7 a.m. I'm going to let you know how long this big chill lasts and when we finally warm well into the 60s, maybe even 70 again. My Weather Authority forecast.
Jury selection in the federal trial of Baltimore City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby continues right now. It is not clear if a jury will be seated today, but with just under an hour left before jurors are dismissed, it seems unlikely.
Yeah, opening statements were scheduled to start tomorrow. That's still possible, depending on when jury selection wraps up. Fox 45 News spoke with one legal expert who says it's not uncommon for the process to take some time.
It's really, although not discussed, it's not at all uncommon for voir dire to take longer than the case itself. In Baltimore City, if we have a gang case or we have a case that has been highly publicized, oftentimes you could take you 2 to 3 days or 4 days in a co-defendant trial or a high publicity one to pick a jury when the case itself only takes 2 days of witness testimony. So not terribly surprising, but it's not something the public is often aware of.
Marilyn Mosby is facing 4 federal charges. This trial will focus on 2 of those charges, both of them for perjury. Stay with Fox 45 News. We'll have complete coverage of the Mosby trial each day. Be sure to download the Fox 45 News app and turn on notifications to get breaking developments even when we're not on the air.
Well, neighbors in Medfield and police dispatch say there were shots fired, but investigators claim those reports are unfounded, pressing BPD on its response to a crime scene in North Baltimore.
A step towards solving hundreds of sexual assault cold cases. The new Baltimore County, the program Baltimore County leaders hope can bring criminals to justice.
A major spike in threats to the homeland. I'm Christine Frizzau in Washington, where top officials laid out why.
We are back with the Fox 45 Quad Box. Legal woes for former President Donald Trump continue. In Colorado, a group is fighting to keep Trump off the 2024 presidential ballot because of his role in the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. In New York, Trump's sons, Eric and Don Jr., are taking the stand in his civil fraud trial. Trump is accused of overstating his wealth to banks and insurers.
Closing arguments underway in the federal trial of Sam Bankman-Fried. He is the founder of crypto company FTX, accused of defrauding investors. In court, he claimed the collapse of the company was caused by, quote, honest mistakes.
A 21-year-old junior at Cornell University is charged with making violent threats online against the school's Jewish community. Patrick Day from New York is facing up to 5 years in prison.
We now know at least 133 people were killed in Gaza after an Israeli airstrike hit the largest refugee camp in the region yesterday. Israel saying the strike killed dozens of Hamas militants hiding in a tunnel under the camp. Today, a number of foreigners were allowed to leave through the border with Egypt.
There's a warning about U.S. national security. Simply put, we are now living in a dangerous period.
Yeah, that is according to the director of the FBI, who also said the October 7th massacre in Israel, led by Hamas, could inspire lone wolf attacks here at home.
Christine Frizzell reports there are also concerns a future attacker may already be living in the country.
It's a threat that's been elevated throughout 2023. But since the October 7th attack in Israel and the war that's followed, concerns about terrorism on U.S. soil have skyrocketed, says FBI Director Christopher Wray.
Our most immediate concern is that violent extremists, individuals or small groups, will draw inspiration from the events in the Middle East to carry out attacks against Americans going about their daily lives.
Already, Hamas and its supporters have used the war as a propaganda tool to recruit and raise funds, posting photos of the resistance. And take a look at this video of Hamas fighters holding babies inside a kibbutz they had just attacked, and many photos and videos of destruction inside Gaza at the hand of Israel. Why? This on top of what the Department of Homeland Security was already seeing, as laid out in the Homeland Threat Assessment released in September, detailing how al-Qaeda and ISIS are seeking to rebuild overseas. Iran maintains its intent to plot attacks against U.S. government officials in retaliation for the killing of Qasem Soleimani back in 2020. And how those with terrorism connections want to use established travel routes and, quote, permissive environments into the United States.
They are concerned about terrorists exploiting our wide open southwest border. Global terrorism is still alive and well, and the same Islamic extremists that attacked Israel want to continue to do harm to our homeland.
The number of special interest aliens apprehended between October of 2021 and October of this year includes 659 from Iran and 538 from Syria, which doesn't include the number of gotaways, those who border agents haven't apprehended.
The risk of terrorism in the United States, I believe, today is greater than it has been at any point since 9/11.
At Tuesday's hearing, Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas insisted individuals who pose a risk to U.S. national security are his agency's top enforcement priority, while critics say the policies at the border don't back that up. In Washington, I'm Christine Frizzell.
Oh, yes, the cold is here, and it's feeling a lot like winter. Even up around Manchester this morning in Carroll County had some snow flurries, snow showers, enough to, well, at least on Chime In, where folks sent in some pictures, cover over some grill tops. So how about that? Otherwise, a freeze warning is in effect for the entire area. That's going to be through 10 a.m. tomorrow morning, so overnight tonight. The plants, tender plants, they got to go inside or they have to be covered over, or gardeners, they're not going to make it. And it looks like a couple of nights of potential frost and freeze conditions coming, including tonight. Mile 1 Towson Camp, boy, it is cold, right? 49 degrees, some partly to mostly sunny skies, winds out of the northwest at about 14. High temperature should be closer to about 60, 65. Nowhere near it today. Wind chill down at 44. Real polar air mass hauling in from the north. Temperatures in the mid to upper 40s to at warmest near 50. Wind chills. Yes, finally we could pull out the wind chill map for you cold weather lovers. 44 is what it feels like here in Baltimore, 40 degrees at Westminster. Look at this, Western Maryland, where they've got snow on the ground, feels like 21 at Oakland, feels like 37 at Cumberland, and feels like 33 down at North Beach current hour. So again, on that trip home, you got to turn on the heater full blast. Temperatures even colder yet toward North and West Cumberland's at 43. How about Pittsburgh? They're only sitting in the upper 30s right now with, again, some of that snow still hanging around ski country in western Maryland, all the way up into western PA, western New York. There's rain and snow showers here. Outside of that, it's really the only game in town except for the cold temperatures, and those extend all the way south. We've got freeze warnings all the way down to almost the Gulf Coast for tonight into tomorrow morning. There, the lake effect rain and snow showers. Otherwise, sunshine, cold temperatures taking it over for the next couple of days, and some frosty mornings too. So again, going to spend a few hours below freezing tonight for most areas. Keep in mind, especially just outside the urban centers, that's where it's going to get the coldest. Going to have to take those plants inside and maybe disconnect some of the hose bibs, that type of thing. And then as we head into tomorrow, temperatures rising again, only to about close to 50 degrees. This may be a little liberal, 55 for tomorrow. Frosty start again on Friday, low 60s, nearer to 70 as we fall back over the weekend on Sunday. And it looks like we could touch 70 into early next week before it becomes more unsettled once again.
Well, straight ahead on Fox 45 News, saying goodbye to another Baltimore firefighter. The viewing for Lieutenant Dylan Ronaldo and how the fire department will pay its respects. And a brand new Audi allegedly stolen by a valet, where the accused thief went and how that car was stolen a second time same night. It is do or die for the Arizona Diamondbacks tonight. A look ahead to what could be the deciding game in the World Series.
The road to postseason baseball on Fox 45 is sponsored by Johns Hopkins Children's Center.
A World Series champion could be crowned as early as tonight. The Texas Rangers now hold a 3-1 lead over the Arizona Diamondbacks. Despite a late rally from the Snakes in Game 4, Texas was well in control. The Rangers put up a 5 spot in the second with Corey Seager capping it off at the inning with a 2-run homer to center. Then in the third, Texas would really open it up, scoring 5 more, including this 3-run blast from Marcus Semien. But despite being without Adolis Garcia and Max Scherzer going forward, both of them injured, the Rangers now 1 win away from their first World Series title ever.
I couldn't be more proud of these guys, how they bounce back, how resilient they are, how they've dealt with things, whether it's losing streaks, whether it's injuries. You can't do anything about it, and you know they're going to happen occasionally. What's important is how you handle it, and they just have handled it all so well, the whole year. So I wasn't worried about how they would handle this.
And the two teams will be back at it tonight for Game 5. Coverage starts at 7. First pitch, that's scheduled for just after 8. You can watch all the action right here on Fox 45. It'll be a pitching rematch from Game 1 of the World Series. Nathan Eovaldi gets the ball for the Rangers, while the Diamondbacks will go with Zach Gallen. That's your MLB postseason report. I'm Rocco DeSangro.
And they're like, well, last night, our valet employee stole your car.
Coming up, a $120,000 car allegedly stolen by the valet, where the accused thief went and what happened to the vehicle ahead. Testing hundreds of pieces of evidence to help solve cold cases, Baltimore County's new effort to get justice for sexual assault victims. And neighbors near Hamden say young people were shooting at each other and multiple cars were damaged, but police are calling it a hit and run. Fox 45 News working to get answers for our community tonight. And we're tracking a freeze warning tonight as temperatures drop to bone-chilling levels across our region. Still ahead, a look at your evening forecast. We are following three big stories right now at 4:30. Baltimore County is vowing to get justice for victims of sexual assault. The new move today to retest evidence in cold cases.
He left his luxury car in the hands of a valet at a luxury hotel in Baltimore. Hear from the man who says that car was stolen and trashed.
But first, neighbors in Medfield experienced a chaotic Tuesday, and Fox 45 News demanding accountability from BPD on their response.
Shots fired. 2 men armed with guns, both wearing masks, have just shot off their guns at a man in a black car, and then they drove off.
Well, thank you for staying with us. I'm Mary Bubala.
And I'm Kai Jackson. Despite hearing from neighbors and 911 dispatch reporting weapons being fired in the middle of the day near Hamden, BPD says reports of a shooting in North Baltimore's Medfield community yesterday are unfounded.
And it's unclear if any further investigations even going to take place. Fox 45's Amy Simpson live as we press police for answers today. Amy?
Yes, Mary, Kai, again today, some of those damaged cars still visible here in this Medfield neighborhood along Buena Vista Avenue. And this, as we're also learning, a neighbor reportedly has dash cam footage of what unfolded here yesterday afternoon. He's declining to share it, telling us he fears retaliation. Around 12:30 yesterday afternoon.
I have discharge of arms, 4125 Buena Vista.
Scanner traffic from the Baltimore Police Northern District.
Shots fired. 2 men armed with guns, both wearing masks, have just shot off their guns at a man in a black car, and then they drove off.
Dispatch appearing to relay multiple 911 reports to responding officers.
Third call, armed person, Buena Vista and Weldon. Caller reporting 2 males just ran into a male driving a sedan, jumped out on him with guns. The guy backed up and hit about 45 cars and sped off.
And this is the scene our Fox 45 news crew arrived to see. A police perimeter, multiple BPD cars, and a city schools police vehicle. At least 3 parked cars smashed and sideswiped. All evidence of the chaos that unfolded in broad daylight.
One was in burst and one was coming like towards him, you know what I mean? And he was just like this, pow, 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 letting loose inside the car. And then he, boom, plowed this and then went up that street, you know what I mean?
This neighbor describing what he says he witnessed.
It's crazy. These juveniles are out of control. Something's got to be done. They were young, really young kids. I could tell they were young.
Meanwhile, what appears to be the voice of an officer on scene relays an update back to dispatch.
I'm in the 4100 block of Buena Vista. Nobody's hurt. Nobody's hit right now.
Less than a minute later.
Both vehicles that were involved in the discharging are not on scene.
And at one point, someone over dispatch even puts units and hospitals on alert.
To add all units with hospitals on your post, please check scene in reference to confirmed discharging 4100 block of Buena Vista and the Northern.
But despite this dispatch chatter and neighbors reporting hearing and seeing guns in this community, Baltimore police tell Fox 45 News reports of a shooting here were unfounded and therefore no incident report was made. But with very real damage and a neighborhood looking for answers and accountability. Today we're pressing BPD, asking what suspects they're looking for and what further investigation is underway. One neighbor also sharing a police report number showing his damaged vehicle was classified as a hit and run. And Mary Kai, so far this evening, our questions to BPD about any suspects and further investigation, those questions have gone unanswered. Meanwhile, the department telling us that man's police report has not yet been completed. Reporting live tonight, Amy Simpson, Fox 45 News.
Amy, thank you. Councilman Eric Costello taking issue with Baltimore's crime in a letter to the mayor's office. The letter describes a crime in his district in which a man on a scooter was mugged along a well-lit street in front of several surveillance cameras. Police allegedly didn't respond to the man for several hours, even after he called 911. In the letter, Costello says, quote, the perpetrators have little fear given the brazen nature of this crime.
I've spent every waking moment over the last 5 days fielding phone calls, text messages, and emails from residents who don't feel safe. People are scared to come out of their home in the middle of broad daylight. That is insane. The administration needs to do something to get this situation under control.
Well, according to BPD, there was and has been a reduction in robberies this year, which is leading some to question how crime is being categorized. Take this surveillance video from a West Baltimore gas station. The owner says teens have been terrorizing his store, breaking shelves, and even pointing a gun at him in one instance. The owner says these encounters warrant more than a simple shoplifting charge, but not according to BPD.
I feel very bad, you know, because it's not shoplifting. It's like they come into your place, they threaten you with guns, sometimes they have a stick, you know, with a knife, and they say, oh, it's shoplifting. How's come?
Well, the teens were charged with larceny. By legal definition, a larceny is defined as the stealing of any property that is not taken by force or violence. But the owner is adamant these crimes included violent acts. Fox 45 News reached out to BPD to clarify why the teens were charged with larceny. So far, we have not heard back.
A recent guest at the Sagamore Pendry Hotel in Baltimore says he gave his keys to the valet when he arrived, but instead of parking it, he says the valet stole it. Fox 45's Jeff Abel has a story you're seeing first on Fox.
I literally was like, you have to be kidding me. You have to be kidding me. Like, this has to be a dream. It has to be a joke.
When Brian Eller traveled to Baltimore for a date night 2 months ago, it turned out to be one of the worst nights of his life. He checked in at the Pendry in Fells Point, left his keys with the valet, and by morning, the hotel manager was knocking on his door.
They come in, they say, hey, we got some bad news for you. I'm like, okay, what's that? And they're like, well, last night, our valet employee stole your car.
His car wasn't just any car. It was a $120,000 Audi, newly purchased and now freshly stolen, according to police, by the very valet who was supposed to be parking it. Investigators say valet Jordan Richardson drove the vehicle to a car meetup event in Canton, and when he got out of the car, more thieves were waiting to move in.
While he was doing that, 3 more people run and jump in the car while he's in the back, and they steal it from him.
Wow, it is destroyed.
Officers recovered the vehicle that night outside an apartment building where it had been abandoned.
Destroyed the whole body, all the wires hanging out. The doors don't even open. There's a full can of gas spilled in the whole car.
The thieves had totaled his car, and Eller had become the latest victim of attacks at the valet stand. In Florida, police recently sounded the alarm after several valet stands had been raided by thieves, stealing keys when the stand was unattended. In Washington this summer, thieves swiped the entire valet stand, packing it in the trunk of a car and taking off. This Baltimore driver's car keys were inside.
Have more people working by that box, by the valet box. You cannot have 3 people working at a valet box at the most busiest corner in D.C.
I'm trusting in this hotel to, have the right people hired here.
In Brian Eller's case, the 24-year-old valet is now criminally charged. But the theft, which has cost Eller thousands of dollars, has earned him an invitation to return to the hotel at no cost.
It's like, oh, you want to give me a free night at your hotel? That means I got to come back there. You know what I mean?
Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
Making headlines, a Baltimore County man is charged with attempted murder after a road rage shooting, according to police. They say 24-year-old Keith Felton from Gwynn Oak shot another driver. It happened on the Baltimore Beltway at Ritchie Highway in Arundel County around 4:30 yesterday evening. According to the victim, he and Felton were driving east on 695 when Felton cut him off, leading to an argument and shooting. Felton is also accused of reckless endangerment and firearm charges. The incident is under investigation.
Multiple vacant homes caught fire last night along West Fairmount Avenue in West Baltimore. It happened just after 7 o'clock. We have no word of injuries, and BPD says they are looking into what caused the fire. The fire department would be, actually. Well, Baltimore firefighters again forced to lay one of their own to rest this weekend.
Today, a viewing was held for fallen Baltimore Fire Department Lieutenant Dylan Ronaldo. This was the scene at Duderuck Funeral Home in Dundalk. Ronaldo's loved ones, fellow firefighters, and others showed up to pay their respects. Ronaldo was one of 2 firefighters who died after battling a row home fire last month. A funeral for Rodney Pitts was held last week. Ronaldo's funeral is set for Friday morning.
A new effort in Baltimore County aims to bring justice to sexual assault victims. County leaders and local police announcing plans to retest evidence in sexual assault cold cases. Previous reviews of the Baltimore County Police Department found there had been significant delays in sexual assault evidence testing. The police chief today promising the department is now remedying those mistakes.
People who commit sexual assault violate a person's body and sense of safety. To victims of sexual assault, you did not deserve what happened to you. We hope this is another step in your healing process and can help reclaim what was stolen from you.
Police say in just the past month, the department has already started testing evidence from 500 cases related to sexual assaults. Officials saying by December of next year, it will have tested all the backlogged sexual assault evidence in partnership with GBMC in hopes of solving cold cases. Well, a local chapter of the NAACP says parents with children in failing schools want more options for a better education.
Ryan Coleman is the president of the Randallstown NAACP, which recently surveyed 700 of its members. 86% of the respondents said a child in a failing school should have access to high-achieving magnet schools, and 52% were in favor of using public funding for private schools. The survey indicates parents want more options as state test scores raise concerns about the number of failing schools in Baltimore County.
When you're talking about the math scores, I mean, these open up all type of careers in a lot of different areas that you're blocked. You won't go into them if you're not proficient in math. And we're seeing our children, especially children of color, having these issues.
Well, tonight at 10 o'clock, Project Baltimore takes a closer look at why some families have fewer options to leave failing schools.
High interest rates are here to stay, at least until inflation gets back to normal levels. I'm Atrell Nashar with the details of the Federal Reserve's latest move.
And the colder air is here to stay. Even some snow showers and flurries over Pennsylvania. Actually, some of those made it up toward Manchester and Carroll County earlier today. I'm going to let you know if they're going to be back in our forecast or got a warm up on the way. That's in my Weather Authority forecast.
The Federal Reserve has decided to leave interest rates unchanged today. The National Desk, Audra El-Nashar, has more on that decision and how the Fed hopes to reach their target of 2% inflation.
As Wall Street expected, for the second time in a row, Federal Reserve members voted to hold interest rates where they are.
Good afternoon, everyone.
The cost of borrowing money has skyrocketed since the Fed started raising rates in March of last year. Economist Rachel Saderberg.
Interest rates are a blunt instrument, right? They're not a scalpel. And in that sense, they have to take a very broad view of what interest rates are going to affect, right? And what they're trying to do is tamper down spending.
For the most part, that hasn't happened yet. The Fed says it will stop raising rates when inflation is on a sustainable path to 2%. The measure they pay most attention to shows inflation's currently at 3.7%. High interest rates also impacting government debt. According to the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, interest is now the fourth largest expense in the federal budget behind Social Security, Medicare, and defense. Billionaire Stanley Druckenmiller criticizing Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen for not securing low pandemic-era rates on long-term debt, calling it the biggest blunder in the history of the department. He later said former Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin in the Trump administration was also at fault. Saderberg says while hindsight is 20/20, the Treasury was just one part of the equation. Congress and the Fed's policies also brought us to this moment.
It's all working together in one bigger picture. And so it's hard to say in a vacuum what one difference would have done.
The Fed also processing a new batch of jobs data. A Labor Department report shows September ended with 9.6 million open jobs. And an ADP private payroll report shows 113,000 jobs were added in October, with the education and healthcare sector coming in as the top job creator. That ADP report also showed pay growth slowed to 5.7% over 12 months. Not great news for workers, but in time, economists believe it could help slow down inflation. In Washington, I'm Audra El-Nashar.
With temperatures dropping, we're looking at how you can winterize your home before cold weather takes hold. This morning, we spoke with Angie Barnett of the Better Business Bureau on how to get your home ready for winter.
First, let's start with the gutters, get everything out because you don't want ice dams to form. That can cause water to go over the gutter. Also, the freezing is going to expand and cause damage. Your roof, take a good look. Missing shingles, again, has a potential of water coming in and also ice.
Barnett also recommended to check your window for cold air and your garage for any cracks or crevices that might let rodents in. Well, every year, tens of thousands of children are hurt by at-home products and appliances. Fox 45's Tom Rogers takes us inside a first-of-its-kind house created by a family who turned a tragedy into something to help others.
November 1st, 2007, Brett Horn's life changed forever. His 2.5-year-old son, Charlie, was killed while attempting to climb up on a small dresser in his bedroom. Turning tragedy into a mission, Brett and his wife Jenny created Charlie's House, the nation's first safety demonstration home designed from the ground up and dedicated to reducing at-home accidents and injuries. It opened in Kansas City 2 years ago.
It's a place where parents and caregivers can come and they can learn how to properly childproof their home.
Whether it's unsafe sleep practices in a nursery, furniture prone to tipping over in a bedroom or living room, poisonous items and choking hazards in the bathroom, kitchen, and laundry area, even fire hazards. This house shows parents and guardians how to avoid them.
There are so many hidden hazards that exist within the home, and this house is a place that parents and caregivers can visit to learn about various hazards that exist and learn what they can do to prevent risks.
For years, Consumer Reports worked alongside parents just like Brett and other safety advocates demanding tougher standards for furniture. The recently enacted Sturdy Act does that, establishing a mandatory safety standard for clothing, storage, their furniture, like a dresser that killed Charlie. It will be enforced by the Consumer Product Safety Commission.
It means that consumers are going to have a safer offering when they go to buy new dressers. And consumers can also expect an agency, CPSC, to come forward with enforcement actions where appropriate, where we see noncompliance in the marketplace.
And sometimes a new product hits the market. New risks are then found.
New products are always a concern, and so it's important to keep up to date with new guidance on safe sleep
It's a never-ending battle advocates like Brett Horn and many others are embracing. Now, if you've experienced an unstable furniture or any other product safety issue, report it to the CPSC at saferproducts.gov. Tom Rogers, Fox 45 News.
Democrats in Congress fractured over the conflict in Israel, how disagreements in the party could impact America's response to the war.
Fox 45 News, winner of 16 2022 Regional Emmy Awards, more than all other Baltimore news stations combined.
Maryland gets a bit of a taste of winter early. This is a live look in western Maryland right now, and your eyes aren't deceiving you. A little bit of the white stuff coming down, that is snow. Here's Chief Meteorologist Jonathan Myers.
Good to not be there
yes,
right now.
It is.
We certainly got a bit of a chill out there currently, right. And also the snow in western Maryland and some of that video, man, impressive. Even places like Manchester, northern Maryland. I mean, we're talking state line in our area. Got some snow flurries and snow showers. Megan Gilland at her house posted some of the flurries and snow showers. And take a look at that video right now. It's a live cam coming out. I believe this is I-68 if you're headed out toward Deep Creek Lakeway. Actually, that probably is right near the town of Oakland. I've done some skiing out that way. Maybe not enough snow to ski, but dusting to a couple inches out there. And it's just the signs of the beginning of something that we're going to be dealing with through the season. So let's take a look outside right now. And here in Towson, we do have on the Mile 1 Towson cam kind of a gusty look to things. We've got blustery winds, also the colorful leaves outside right now that kind of pair up with everything. So a beautiful look, but not snowy like they're seeing out toward our west. We'll take our Inner Harbor sky cam as well. You can see there are some beautiful blue skies with some patchy clouds kind of floating by. If we could take a look here at our current graphics, we can actually show you the temperatures outside right now. Looks like our graphics are having a little technical difficulties there, but we'll get back to you on that. I'm going to toss back over to you.
All right, Jonathan, thank you. Coming up on Fox 45 News at 5 o'clock, the mayor says he supports an audit of Monsey. We press him for answers on safe streets in the wake of the FBI investigation. The car theft crisis extends beyond Baltimore. We take a look at the issues that residents are facing. Mayor Brandon Scott stands by the Safe Streets program after multiple FBI raids. The new funding promoting even more questions about transparency.
Plus, a teen with a troubled past shot and killed while apparently committing a crime. The debate brewing over how it could have been avoided.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 5.
The mayor is standing right in the midst of this. As far as I'm concerned, Monsey, the mayor, Johns Hopkins, Catholic Charities, Life Bridge all need to be checked out.
Calls for accountability for Safe Streets continue as Baltimore City Spending Board unanimously approves a multi-million-dollar grant for the Safe Streets program.
And while the FBI continues to investigate the city's flagship gun violence prevention program, Mayor Scott defending the city's action.
It passed the board unanimously and for good reason.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. The routine agenda has been adopted.
The actions of a few individuals, however, does not negate the critical work that violence interrupters do in our city on a daily basis. When we were under a federal investigation for BPD, we were still taking grants from the state for BPD.
Well, thank you for staying with us. I'm Mary Bubala.
And I'm Kai Jackson. While the mayor says the funding will help the program continue, there are several unanswered questions about what's next for Safe Streets amid a federal investigation.
Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost pressed the mayor on some of these issues. She joins us live with what Mayor Scott is saying today. Mackenzie?
Yeah, Mary and Kai, the mayor says that he maintains that the actions of some should not negate what's happening at other Safe Streets locations all across the city. But there still seems to be a lack of transparency from the top when it comes to this program, even as the mayor says he agrees there should be an audit of the mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement. The FBI raid at the Safe Streets site in Bel Air Edison remains a major black cloud over leaders inside City Hall.
All right. Good morning, everyone. I think everyone is in and settled.
Mayor Brandon Scott taking questions in person for the first time since the news broke. The FBI raiding 15 locations, 3 Safe Streets employees suspended. The location is inactive and at least one person facing state-level charges.
We work with our federal partners every day and will continue to do so throughout this investigation.
Mayor Scott says he spoke with Comptroller Bill Henry about moving forward with an audit of Monzi, the city agency that oversees the implementation of Safe Streets.
This is about looking and making sure that money and things are being spent the right way, and we welcome that.
But that will take time and requires voters to approve a charter amendment to ensure Monzi stays on the list of routine audits. Can't you just direct Monzi to be transparent and hand over the information for the public so they can see what's going on with their tax dollars right now?
Well, I think that Mackenzie, the voters of Baltimore voted to have audits, and they voted to have them in this way. And I can't direct the Department of Audits to do that because they don't work for me. We have
But you can tell Monzi to do it.
We've talked to the comptroller, who is in charge of doing audits for the city, and he and I agree that it should be done, and we're going to do it the way that the voters, the residents of Baltimore, said it should be done by the comptroller.
When the audit will be complete is not clear, but what is clear, the mayor's apparent unwavering support of Safe Streets, one that's central to his crime-fighting strategy. Even when the FBI investigate gang affiliations with Safe Streets in 2018, former Safe Streets worker Ricky Evans admitting to storing guns and drugs here at the location that used to be on Monument Street in East Baltimore. The feds say Evans admitted to using the location as a BGF gang meeting location. Wednesday, we questioned the mayor about the apparent lack of oversight measures in place to prevent a similar situation from unfolding again. Why should the public trust that this program is functional now?
Well, I think that we also have a separately outside of city government that says the program works. We've said everything that we're going to say about the investigation that should be directed to the FBI.
With the mayor saying the current probe is just about the actions of a few, there are still unanswered questions about the hiring process. The nonprofits say Monzi is part of the screening panel. Monzi says hiring is done by the nonprofits. So who does make the final say in the hiring process? And given that what we're seeing happen now the second time with an FBI raid at Safe Streets sites, will anything change when it comes to that screening process for employees?
There will be changes, and we'll send you directly the information in writing how those decisions are made. Thank you.
So who makes the final say of the hiring? The mayor leaving the news conference without providing a clear answer, and that information has yet to come from his office. When we were leaving City Hall earlier today, we saw several key stakeholders involved in the operations of Safe Streets going into the mayor's office. So I reached out and asked his team what that meeting was about. But so far, again, we haven't heard anything back. Meanwhile, it's unclear when the Safe Streets location in the Bel Air Edison neighborhood will reopen. We're live in the newsroom. Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Mackenzie, thank you. And remember, these FBI raids are not the first major issue for Safe Streets. Several Safe Streets workers have been charged with crimes while working for the program. One example is Ronald Alexander. He was convicted of distributing drugs in the communities he was tasked with protecting. According to authorities, he also tried to use his status as a Safe Streets worker to hide his drug dealing. And in the Brooklyn office last year, a federal indictment accused Vernon Harper of possessing fentanyl with the intention of distributing it. He was sentenced to 18 months in prison.
There's the case of Damon Scroggins. Safe Streets worker Ronald Brady Jr. was accused of killing Scroggins in September of 2019. That case went to trial in 2022, but ended in a hung jury. Brady was acquitted in March. Scroggins' family is critical of Safe Streets, calling it a, quote, criminal enterprise.
My belief is that our city government is financing a criminal enterprise. I believe that within my heart. Our city government is so invested in it that it's turning a blind eye to what it really is.
Mackenzie questioned Mayor Brandon Scott, but Fox 45 News has questions for the City Council and LifeBridge, the nonprofit that runs the Bel Air Edison Safe Streets location. We sent a series of questions to both the LifeBridge board and their Vice President of Violence Intervention, Adam Rosenberg, including when did you first learn about the FBI investigation? What, if any, knowledge of possible criminal activity at Bel Air Edison do you have? And who actually approves the hiring of Safe Streets employees?
We have also been pressing the city council since this story broke. Most members of the council support an audit of Safe Streets, but right now do not support an independent investigation of the program. We sent questions to all city council members, including, will you pass a resolution to review how nonprofits spend tax dollars? Should the Safe Streets contracts with Catholic Charities and LifeBridge be audited? And is it time to open the books about the Safe Streets operation? Now, these are just some of the many questions we have asked city leaders and Safe Streets operators. The full list is on FOX45.com.
Yesterday, we asked, should Safe Streets be halted pending an investigation or audit of the program? 96% of those who voted said yes. That brings us to our question of the day. Do you trust Mayor Scott to get to the bottom of what's going on with Safe Streets? Head to foxbaltimore.com/vote to make your voice heard.
Well, Fox 45 News has been investigating the Safe Streets program for years, demanding answers about how the program spends taxpayer dollars and how it keeps track of the former criminals it employs.
We'll continue our relentless demand for answers. Our commitment to you is to follow your tax dollars and hold elected leaders accountable for the Safe Streets program and any other issues facing the city.
And you can find all of our previous reporting and follow along as our investigation continues on foxbaltimore.com. New information tonight in the homicide of a teenager in northeast Baltimore.
We're learning that Khalil Jones was involved, according to police, in an attempted robbery when he was shot Monday night and may have been on home monitoring for another crime at that time.
Alexa Ashwell here now with some strong comments from the mayor and the latest on this investigation. Alexa?
Yes, Kai, Mary, as police pieced together this investigation, we heard a mound of frustration coming from Mayor Brandon Scott, who made the bold statement that had this teen's criminal past been properly handled the first time, he would be alive today.
Good morning, everyone.
Strong words from Mayor Brandon Scott concerning Khalil Jones, the 16-year-old, previously taken into custody for an attempted carjacking, killed just 2 months later in an attempted robbery, according to police.
When you're talking about young people, there has to be some system that actually works. Because if something was done the first time someone was arrested for something like this, that young man will be alive today. That's the reality.
Baltimore police say Jones was shot during an attempted robbery here on Bowleys Lane in northeast Baltimore, October 30th. His body was discovered by officers after two teens attempting to drive Jones to the hospital crashed here on Orleans Street. The car they were in, police say, had been reported stolen in Baltimore County days prior. But that's not all. Back in August, police confirmed Jones was involved in the attempted armed carjacking of an off-duty police officer in Baltimore City. Here, the mayor alluding to the fact that Jones may have been on home monitoring as a result, a punishment that clearly didn't keep him off the streets.
If we have someone who tries to carjack a police officer, right, along with several other young people who are arrested, only for them to be turned right back out on the streets to commit the same kind of crimes, then folks don't need to be talking to me or the police commissioner about that. We need to understand again that you should not be able to do that to anyone and be released on the streets. When you're on home monitoring, you should be monitored 24/7, 365. This is why we've been fighting for those changes.
Changes to the juvenile justice system. Scott revealing pleas from police, prosecutors, and even parents fell on deaf ears.
And you have to start looking at judges who go over the state's attorney's wishes, who go over the police and my wishes, who go over the parents' wishes. If you have parents saying, please, we need help, don't send them home to us right now, then why are we doing it? Why are they doing it? Why? Because those folks don't have to talk to those kids' families. Those folks don't have to go to those funerals and hear other young people cry and see people mourning.
Now, the 18-year-old who police say was with Jones when the stolen car crashed is facing several charges related to the theft of the car out of Baltimore County, but not the attempted robbery here in the city. I asked police about this. BPD says the investigation is ongoing. The 18-year-old is currently being held without bond. Alexa Ashwell, Fox 45 News.
Alexa, thank you. Well, the mayor has called for a complete overhaul of the juvenile justice system in the past, but has never given specifics about what he wants to see happen. Fox 45 News has pressed him on exactly what he wants to see changed, including if he believes Maryland's juvenile justice laws need to be repealed and whether he believes there needs to be a change in leadership at the Department of Juvenile Services. He's never given us a straight answer.
I think that the reason that politicians don't like to be specific is because then they will be held accountable for what they said they would do. He can't even blame Governor Hogan anymore. He has Governor Wes Moore, who has claimed to be a more than willing partner to Baltimore City. So he's got all the pieces in place. We just need specifics.
And you can find more on our questions for the mayor on our website, foxbaltimore.com.
Day 2 of jury selection in the federal trial of former City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby is over. A jury has not been finalized, so jury selection will continue tomorrow.
Opening statements were scheduled to start tomorrow. That's still possible depending on when jury selection wraps up. Fox 45 News spoke with one legal expert who says it's not uncommon for the process to take a long time.
It's really, although not discussed, it's not at all uncommon for voir dire to take longer than the case itself. In Baltimore City, if we have a gang case or we have a case that has been highly publicized, oftentimes it could take you 2 to 3 days or 4 days in a co-defendant trial or a high publicity one to pick a jury when the case itself only takes 2 days of witness testimony. So not terribly surprising, but it's not something the public is often aware of.
Marilyn Mosby is facing 4 federal charges. This trial will focus on 2 of those charges, both of them for perjury. Stay with Fox 45 News. We'll have complete coverage of the Mosby case each day. Be sure to download the Fox 45 News app to turn on notifications and get breaking developments even when we're not on air.
The cold weather, it is set up and it's staying for a while. Some of the coldest weather we've seen since last spring coming through around here. Take a look there. Freeze warning is in effect for the entire area. That's going to last this late night tonight through 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. So gardeners, bring those tender plants inside or make sure they're covered over. Also, make sure things like the hose bibs are all drained and all your hoses are all drained as well. I encountered those problems last year, so I'm dealing with some new hoses and new hose bibs this year. 48 degrees BWI, 50 degrees at Bel Air as well as at Annapolis. Temperature only in the 40s, low 40s at that at Jarrettsville and 40s across the board from Westminster, where nearby they had some snow flurries early this morning, to Dundalk. Look at the lows overnight, down to right at or below freezing for most of us. Baltimore, 31, 29 at Denton, and on the western side and western edges of the area, at or below freezing for several hours. So that's going to qualify us for a freeze. Going to let you know how long these cold temperatures last and when we could have a nice size warm up in my Weather Authority forecast.
We'll still ahead tonight. Conflicting reports after a chaotic afternoon in Medfield near Hamden. Fox 45 News presses BPD on what actually happened.
I'm Janae Bowens in Washington with a look at the divide in the Democratic Party over support for Israel.
Israel's military is defending yesterday's strike on Gaza's refugee camp, arguing the Hamas commander it allegedly killed was a legitimate target.
There is the military necessity, which is clear. There's a clear military necessity. When you have a terrorist, an arch-terrorist, surrounded by dozens of his henchmen that are planning to conduct more attacks, then they are a legitimate target.
Israeli Defense Forces say they killed one of the commanders responsible for the October 7th attack on Israel. Hamas denies that he was there and calls the strike a heinous crime against civilians, children, and women. Israel's military won't say whether they will provide evidence of his death, but say their intelligence has confirmed it. Health officials in Gaza say the strike caused hundreds of casualties, and many are still buried under the rubble. Now, there is clear division within the Democratic Party over support for Israel. National correspondent Janae Bowens explains the growing tension.
Reacting to 15 House Democrats who did not vote for a resolution supporting Israel last week, Congressman Josh Gottheimer, who is Jewish, called them despicable.
If he wants to play some kind of tough guy or gangster, we can handle it like gentlemen, or we can get into something else.
Congressman Andre Carson, who is Muslim, blasted Gottheimer, calling him a coward and a punk.
Not acting in the role as a member of Congress.
Congressman Dean Phillips, also Jewish, had this to say.
To not recognize what just happened on October 7th in such graphic form is really disconcerting and appalling.
This public falling out highlights the deeper divides within the Democrat Party. Reports show top Democrat funder George Soros gave $15 million to groups behind pro-Palestinian and anti-Israel protests.
Now, this comes at a time when progressives are calling for more support for Palestinians and a different approach from President Joe Biden.
The American people are actually quite far away from where the president and even Congress, the majority of Congress, has been on Israel and Gaza. They support the right for Israel to defend itself, to exist, but they do not support a war crime exchanged for another war crime.
An NPR PBS Marist national poll shows 65% of Americans say the U.S. government should publicly support Israel in the war between Israel and Hamas. But according to a new poll from the Arab American Institute, 2/3 of Arab Americans have a negative view of President Biden's response to the current violence in Palestine and Israel. The poll marks the first time in 26 years that the majority of Arab American voters did not claim to prefer the Democratic Party. Differing views on the conflict could possibly have significant political implications for the Democrats. In Washington, I'm Janae Bowens.
Well, Fox 45 is partnering with Magen David Adom for Sinclair Care's Humanitarian Relief for Israel. That organization is a Red Cross affiliate providing emergency medical aid for all people in Israel. To help, you can scan the QR code on your screen or go to sinclaircares.com.
Some serious chill coming our way overnight tonight into tomorrow morning. Widespread frost and freeze conditions after, yes, even some snow flurries and enough snow to cover some of the tops of backyard grills up around Manchester early this morning, up Carroll County Way, northern Baltimore County. Now we have the cold, and it looks like, yes, gardeners are going to have to bring in those tender plants or cover them over, make sure all the hoses outside, outdoor plumbing is all drained out. Could have some big plumbing problems outside if you don't. 48 degrees right now with just a couple of stray clouds. Toyota Shin Harbor Skycam almost looks cold outside. Winds out of the northwest at 13. You're going to need to bundle up on that PM commute home. Feels with the wind chill like 43. 48 here in Baltimore right now. Temperatures in the mid to upper 40s at Cockeysville as well as at Bel Air. 46 at Westminster. Barely 50 down toward Annapolis, and temperatures only made it to 50 at the airport today over at BWI. Feels more like 43 here in Baltimore. Currently 41 at Westminster, 42 at Bel Air, 42 down at Stevensville, even some wind chills in the 30s around Gaithersburg. Actual temperatures in the upper 30s in Pittsburgh, where not too far away, Deep Creek Lake, you saw anywhere up to about 1-2 inches of snow today. You can see that there on the western side of Maryland, all the way up into southwestern mountainous Pennsylvania. And then look, it is mainly clear across much of the rest of the country. That is what's coming in for us, not only for tonight, but the next several days. Going to be a quiet forecast, but it's going to be cold for a little while here as winds out of Canada continue to usher in. You still see, again, those rain and snow showers, mainly kind of lake effect activity over western New York, western Pennsylvania. Sunny, cold conditions continue for us. Again, through the end of the week before a warm-up as we head into the weekend. So the future scan overnight into early tomorrow morning. There, your temperature settling down to about 25 to 30 for at least a few hours in some spots, especially just outside of Baltimore, outside of the immediate water areas, and maybe some mid-20s in the cold spots. So that's frost and freeze conditions. May have to get out, probably will have to get out your scrapers tomorrow morning. So leave extra time for that and warming up the car, getting those remote start heaters going. By about lunchtime, we're well into the 40s. And tomorrow, a lot like today, I think the winds are going to die down. So that's better. But high temperatures, low to mid 50s at best. Frosty start for tomorrow morning. Again, a frosty start. For Friday morning, a little bit of a warm-up back to the low 60s. Could touch 70 over the weekend. We fall back late Saturday night into Sunday. Of course, we go back into standard time. And just to enter that, looks like some warmer temperatures into early next week before the next weather maker.
Jonathan, thank you. Still ahead tonight. Halloween may be over, but there is still time for a major fright. An inside look at the paranormal Cirque. It's usually Cirque du Soleil. And tonight, we could have a World Series champion or not. Rocco DeSangro joins us live to break down all of the highlights ahead of tonight's big game.
The road through postseason baseball on Fox 45 is sponsored by Johns Hopkins Children's Center.
A World Series champion could be crowned as early as tonight. The Texas Rangers now hold a 3-1 lead over the Arizona Diamondbacks. Despite a late rally from the Snakes in Game 4, Texas was well in control. The Rangers put up a 5 spot in the second with Corey Seager. He just stays hot, capping off the inning with a 2-run homer to center. And in the third, Texas would really open up the scoring, scoring 5 more runs, including this 3-run blast from Marcus Semien. Despite being without Adolis Garcia and Max Scherzer going forward due to injury, the Rangers 1 win away from their first World Series title ever.
I couldn't be more proud of these guys, how they bounce back, how resilient they are, how they've dealt with things, whether it's losing streaks, whether it's injuries. You can't do anything about it, and you know they're going to happen occasionally. What's important is how you handle it, and they just have handled it all so well, the whole year, so I wasn't worried about how they would handle this.
And the two teams will be back at it tonight for Game 5. Coverage starts at 7, first pitch just after 8. You can watch all the action right here on Fox 45. It's going to be a pitching rematch from Game 1 of the World Series. Nathan Eovaldi, he's going to get the ball for the Rangers, while the Diamondbacks, they'll go with Zach Allen. That's your MLB postseason report. I'm Rocco DeSangro.
Coming up after the break, Fox 45 News continues to press city police on how crimes are categorized. The new findings showing an alarming reality. Plus, carjackings and auto thefts have dire impacts throughout our region. The latest statistics showcasing the extent of the problem.
One was in burst and one was coming like towards him, you know what I mean? And he was just like this, pow, 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 letting loose inside the car. And then he, boom, plowed this and then went up that street.
In a city in crisis, despite hearing directly from neighbors and 911 dispatch reporting weapons fired in the middle of the day, city police say a shooting in North Baltimore's Medfield community yesterday was unfounded.
And it comes as we question BPD on how certain crimes are categorized. We have live team coverage tonight, starting with Amy Simpson. She has details surrounding that shooting in the Medfield community. Amy.
Yeah, so Mary, not only does BPD say reports of a shooting here in this community yesterday, they say those reports were unfounded. They also say that an incident report was never even made. And knocking on doors, speaking to neighbors here today, they're very frustrated and shaken by this incident. One man I spoke with also blamed juveniles for allegedly firing weapons and crashing into parked cars around lunchtime yesterday. But that neighbor told me off camera he feels like nothing will happen, claiming nobody will be held accountable for the damage left behind here. And take a listen to some of the dispatch chatter from this area, painting a picture of those 911 calls coming in yesterday afternoon.
I have discharge of arms, 4125 Buena Vista. Third call, armed person, Buena Vista and Weldon. Caller reporting 2 males just ran into a male driving a sedan, jumped out on him with guns. The guy backed up and hit about 45 cars and sped off.
Both vehicles that were involved in the discharging are not on scene.
So with some very real damage here in this Medfield neighborhood and a neighborhood looking for answers today, we pressed BPD asking what suspects they're looking for and what further investigation is underway in this North Baltimore neighborhood. But those questions about suspects and any further investigation so far, they've gone unanswered. Reporting live tonight, Amy Simpson, Fox 45 News.
Amy, thank you. From shootings to robberies, the way BPD keeps track of crime data is causing some confusion for some law enforcement leaders. Each week, BPD releases a report comparing this year's crime numbers to last year's. But as Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor's reporting tonight, some of the data isn't matching up. Rebecca?
Yeah, that's right, Mary. According to BPD's recent reports, robberies are down this year, but that's not the case when you look at last year's stats.
Each week, BPD releases one of these, a citywide incident report comparing last year's crime stats to this year. The most recent report showing robberies down 1% compared to the 3,493 robberies reported this time last year. But in the same report released this time last year, just 3,095 robberies were recorded, a difference of about 400 robberies, which compared to this year's crime stats would shift BPD's 1% drop to an 11% rise in robberies.
But certainly raises questions.
Former Deputy Commissioner Jason Johnson and former Commissioner Ed Norris.
The numbers aren't accurate.
Both pointing to robberies as the most commonly manipulated and miscategorized crime stat.
If someone commits what objectively you might call a robbery, some person in a leadership role in the police department might look at that case and say, well, actually it was an assault, and then later there was a theft.
You can't hide murders. But what they can hide is burglaries, robberies, because then it becomes a larceny with a menacing, which is ridiculous. That's not the case. It's a robbery. Someone points a gun or a knife at you and threatens you.
According to BPD, the data discrepancy stems from switching to a new data reporting system, one that now allows for multiple offenses to be documented per incident. Although it's unclear when exactly the new system was put in place and how or if it affected past reporting.
400 cases sounds like a lot. Sounds like a big swing based on numbers, if that's the only explanations.
Johnson says accurate crime data is the only way for BPD to accurately allocate resources.
I think that it really is incumbent upon the BPD to explain that a little bit better.
And for residents to accurately evaluate elected leaders.
Crime data is something that so many people look at on a regular basis just to get a gauge on the safety of the city. And so the accuracy is important.
BPD also stopped reporting gas station and convenience store robberies to the public late last year. Since then, I've asked them countless times to explain why. But as of news time tonight, still no answers. Reporting live in Baltimore City, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
Rebecca, thank you. Councilman Eric Costello has complained about Baltimore's crime in a letter to the mayor's office. Now, the letter describes crime in his own district in which a man on a scooter was mugged on a well-lit street in front of surveillance cameras. Police allegedly didn't respond to the man for several hours, even after the 911 call. In the letter, Costello says, quote, the perpetrators have little fear given the brazen nature of the crime.
I've spent every waking moment over the last 5 days fielding phone calls, text messages, and emails from residents who don't feel safe. People are scared to come out of their home in the middle of broad daylight. That is insane. The administration needs to do something to get this situation under control.
We reached out to Baltimore police and the mayor's office about how they plan to address quality of life crimes. So far, we have not heard back.
Well, police say the parents of the 15-year-old boy accused in the triple shooting outside of Carver Vote Tech may have fueled the fight that led to their son's violence. Police say one of the 15-year-old boys and his parents approached a group of young people. That's when police tell us the son pistol whipped an unknown juvenile, then approached another 15-year-old boy who pulled a gun. Both boys then began shooting. According to online court records, the parents are in jail.
When you make a decision that clearly says, I don't know how to live in civilized society, we want to put you someplace where you can live. We're talking about responsibility and accountability for adults, and when they act in a juvenile and adolescent way, there should be consequences.
Well, the two 15-year-olds are facing attempted murder charges.
Fox 45 News has heard from top prosecutors across the state for weeks, frustrated with juvenile justice laws in Maryland. Those prosecutors represent 5.4 million people, about 87% of Maryland's population. Next Wednesday, lawmakers in Annapolis will hold a hearing on juvenile crime. They'll hear testimony from the state attorney general and also members of the state's Juvenile Justice Reform Council and Maryland Police Union. The hearing is not a special session and can't be used to enact any laws or change existing ones. If you'd like to contact your lawmakers directly about juvenile crime, House Speaker Adrian Jones and Senate President Bill Ferguson are two of the most powerful lawmakers in Annapolis. Their phone numbers and email addresses are on your screen.
Well, the recent guest at the Sagamore Pendry Hotel in Fells Point says he gave his keys to the valet when he arrived, but instead of parking it, the valet driver is accused of driving off with this luxury car.
They come in, they say, hey, we got some bad news for you. I'm like, okay, what's that? And they're like, well, last night, our valet employee stole your car.
Investigators say valet Jordan Richardson drove the vehicle to a car meetup event in Canton, and when he got out of the car, more thieves moved in.
While he was doing that, 3 more people run and jump in the car while he's in the back, and they steal it from him.
The car was worth about $130,000. Officers recovered the vehicle that night outside an apartment building where it had been abandoned, but it was completely destroyed and totaled. The 24-year-old valet accused of stealing Eller's car is now facing charges. Auto thefts in general have been an issue across Baltimore all year. The Baltimore police are reporting more than 9,300 thefts, on pace to surpass 10,000 before the end of November. Police say only about 3% of those thefts have ended in arrests.
It's not just Baltimore seeing an issue. This is also happening around the DMV. Tom Rousey with our Sinclair sister station in Washington examines what's being done to prevent these kinds of crimes from happening.
Prince George's County has seen 409 carjackings this year, up nearly 50% versus this time in 2022. Meanwhile, D.C. has seen 831, a 107% increase. Fairfax County has seen a mere 22, up 16%. Now, that said, there have been several recently, all ending in arrests. 2 have happened in parking garages for Tyson's Corner Center Mall, one earlier this month in which some type of candy was thrown on the victim, and one this week that ended in this crash. Plus, he's carjacking somebody behind him. There was an attempt caught by the Fairfax County Police helicopter by a man who'd already led police on a chase after allegedly stealing a vehicle in Loudoun and driving it to the Tyson's Corner area.
We have those eyes in the sky that are still watching you, and they lead our officers right to where we need to be.
Fairfax County Lieutenant Jim Curry says when Chief Kevin Davis arrived 2 years ago, he began an auto crimes enforcement unit.
And they proactively investigate and identify these stolen or carjacked vehicles, and they're out there almost every single day looking for vehicles involved in these crimes.
The cause, we don't really know. It certainly seems to be sort of crimes of opportunity.
Police in D.C. recently told us they have a carjacking task force aimed at making arrests and building cases against suspects.
Specifically, we are a reactive unit. That's all we do is respond. We get cases after the fact.
Montgomery County Chief Marcus Jones said parents and others need to address a rise in carjacking by young people.
These are not video games. This is real life. And this is, this is life and death.
to be quite frank.
Meanwhile, Prince George's County tells us they have a carjacking interdiction unit, which consists of a team of detectives only responsible for carjackings. Prince William County tells us they have a low number of carjackings, and random carjackings are especially low. They investigate each one, though, and charge if there's probable cause against someone. Meanwhile, Arlington County says they put patrols, marked and unmarked, in areas where carjackings have happened, and they work regionally to identify trends and make arrests. Loudoun County tells us they've had 0 confirmed carjackings in 2023.
We also heard more details from Montgomery County. They say they increased patrols in areas that have seen a pattern of carjacking. They also increased the use of mobile police cameras. Reporting in Tyson's Corner, Virginia, I'm Tom Rousey for Fox 45 News.
If you have a story about a stolen car or know someone who's been impacted by the spike in auto thefts, we'd like to hear about it. Scan the QR code on your screen and tell us what happened, or send an email to news@foxbaltimore.com. A local chapter of the NAACP says parents with children in failing schools want more options for better education. Ryan Coleman is the president of the Randallstown, Baltimore County NAACP. They recently surveyed 700 members. 86% of those said in a